Hello, everyone. Hope you're all logged in, ready to go. I'm maybe just gonna give it a minute for people to get online and get all set up, and then we're gonna begin very shortly. Right, I hope you can all see me. Please shout in the chat if not. But everybody, good evening and welcome to this one-off session on Node.js offered by our sponsor NatWest. So a little bit of housekeeping before we jump right into it with our lovely speakers. A bit of housekeeping. So backstage you have me. I'm Chiara. I'm a Code First Go brand ambassador. I took quite a few of the Code First Go classes and I really, really loved them. So much so that I decided to switch career. So I quit my job in finance earlier this year and went back to university, and now I'm studying software development, hoping to have a career in tech someday. So throughout the session, please do feel free to ask any question in the YouTube chat. We're going to have time for Q&A with each of our speakers after they're finished their session. So please bear that in mind and keep the questions coming. So to start off, we're going to introduce our first speaker. She's going to talk you and tell you all about Node.js. She's Sarah. She's part of the Code First Girl community. She studied math at the University of Leeds and got into coding as part of her research project at university. And after graduating, she decided she wanted to start her career in tech. And she eventually found a job as graduate software engineer at BJSS, which is an IT consultancy. So from Sarah, we're going to learn all about Node.js. I'm really, really looking forward because I really do not quite know what that is. So I'm sure everybody's very excited. You feel free to ask any technical Node related questions you have in the chat, and we're going to put those to Sarah at the end of her section. But if you're interested, also feel free to ask her about her career, her role, her experience in the tech world. Once we're finished with Sarah's part, we're going to move on to our kind sponsor, NatWest. We have Andrea from NatWest. She is a software engineer at NatWest, and she's a constant driver behind the group's bank and API software engineering team. She's also a very hands-on technologist and a role model within her team. In addition to all of this, she's also very, very keen and very involved with the bank's inclusivity and diversity agenda. And she's very, very passionate about developing talent in technology and especially female talent whenever she can. Right, so I know we're all very keen to hear from our lovely speakers, but just very to flag to you some cool stuff that Code First Girls have coming up. There's really many MOOCs scheduled throughout the course of the summer. There's so many different topics, so very likely there is something for everybody. So do have a look. I will post a link in the comment in the chat session. So yeah, make sure you do have a look at that one, and also keep an eye on the Code First Girl webpage, because there might be some very exciting new opportunities and announcement coming out very shortly. So yeah, I think that's all for me. I'll be here, so please feel free to ask any question. If you want to know more about Code First Girls and opportunities they may have, do feel free also to reach out directly. But yeah, I think that's everything. So I'm gonna pass it on to Sarah now, who's gonna show you some very cool stuff with Node.js. Sure.
Hello, everybody. Hoping that you can see up my screen. Excellent. Welcome to our Node.js MOOC. So today we're going to be learning about what is Node.js. We're going to learn a little bit about how web applications work. We're going to create a server. We're going to learn about some HTTP requests and responses. This is sort of how information gets passed around using the internet. And we're going to do lots of nice, helpful exercises so you can see what it looks like in practice. So, let's get stuck into it. So first of all, what is a web application? Well, they consist usually of 4 elements. This is a simple picture to get the idea. But we start with the client. So that's the browser, Safari, Firefox, Chrome, that lives on a device, on a PC or a laptop or a tablet or a phone or a screen reader. And that's often referred to as the front end. And it handles JavaScript, which you might be familiar with, CSS, which is used to style web pages, and HTML, which provides a sort of text information that's displayed on a web page. And the front end connects to the server via the internet. The server is a computer somewhere. Oh, that moved a bit fast. It handles website logic. So if you're on a website, for example, a shop, then the server is what's moving all the information around. Node.js is a server-side language. It's used on the server to do stuff. So unlike JavaScript or CSS or HTML, that's going on the client, on the front end. Node.js is happening on the server. And the server links also to databases, and that's where information is stored. So some examples of databases, MongoDB, MySQL. But if we think about the shop as an example, the person uses the browser to access the shop, and products are displayed on the screen using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but the product information isn't saved on your device. It's saved on the server, or then in the database. And the server is going to liaise with the database and with the front end. So when you click on, a book, then when you go, the server goes, they want to look at this object, fires off a request to the database sends some information back, the server processes it and sends it to the front end. The front end looks at that and displays it nicely for you. And today we're learning about this server part. And we're going to use Node.js. So what is Node.js? Well, it's not a framework. So if you've encountered React or Angular, those are frameworks that use JavaScript. It's a collection of packages which work together. Node.js is a bit different. It's a runtime environment, and that's used to execute code. It lets you run scripts. It allows you to access and store variables, data. It's open source, which is great because the source code is freely available. Developers around the world can access it. They can contribute to it. It is built using JavaScript. So if you're a front-end developer and you're familiar with JavaScript, you can then write server-side code and handle logic without having to learn a new language, which is very helpful. Node also has a large package library, which that's like a collection of other pieces of code that people have written that allow you to do things. For example, convert Celsius to Fahrenheit. There might be a package that lets you, display things as graphs nicely, or insert videos into a page or something like that. You name the thing, there's probably a package out there that can help you. And if there's not, you can write a package and share it with everybody else. It's also one of the most commonly used tools in web development, primarily because of all these great facts. So who's using it? Well, all the big names. Huge tech companies are using it. Individuals are using it. And it can be used to create any application that any other server-side programming language could do. It can do data streaming. You can build apps. You can do complex computations because of all these packages that you can access. It's widely used to create server-side logic for any web app, any kind of website, a shop, a blog, chatbots, news sites. It's incredibly versatile. So how can we use it? Let's get stuck in. If you are wanting to code along, you can do it in your own code editor, and I'll show you how to get started. If you're not feeling that brave, don't worry. We're going to use a website called REPL, and I'll show you how to get started on that too. But first of all, if you're using your own code editor, to get started, you need to download Node. So to download Node, we just need to visit Node.js.org. And you can download it from this website via Windows, or it's possibly forcing me to download it via Windows because I'm using Windows. So I suspect if you're not using Windows, that you get some different options here. Just download the latest version, and you can check that it's installed by running some commands. So you can run node v like this, and I'm running node 14. And you can also check the package manager is installed by running npm v, and I'm running version 6. Like I said, don't worry if you're not ready to install this. We're going to use a tool that's going to help us out. That's how you would do it. I'm going to try and make sure that I continue to use the code editor just in case you're coding along like this, and because it's a little bit more realistic if you were going to code more frequently. But we're going to use REPL. So REPL, it's a great website. It's going to let us code without having to install all this stuff on our own computer. If you haven't got an account, you can sign up. I already have an account, so I'm just going to log in. And then we're going to create a new REPL in Node. I'm going to call it Code First Girls. And here we go. It set us up with a file called index.js. We've got a console, and we've got a file where we're going to write a script. So what are we going to do in our REPL? We're going to do the classic hello. We are going to write a function that's going to spit hello into the console. So maybe first, I'm just going to point out, you can use the console, because this is a runtime environment, to do certain things. So you could do some basic calculations in the console if you wanted. If I type 6 plus 7, it's going to spit out 13. So if you know enough JavaScript commands that are console friendly, you can do things in Node in the console in the same way that you might if you were playing around in Python. But you can't do something like you might in Python, say that x equals 21, and then want to do something like, oh, you can do it. Ignore me. Yeah, okay. Clearly you can mess around with variables. I'm not sure we can access it in a script. Not sure. play around. Anyway, let's get to our function. So we're going to write a function that says hello something. So we're going to declare that we want to write a function. We're going to call it say hello. And we're going to give it one argument, and that is the name. So our function is going to say hello to name. And inside the curly braces, we're going to explain what the function is going to do. So our function is going to log to the console. This console log hello. And we're going to put a space in because otherwise there's not going to be a space in our sentence. And this plus is just telling us to concatenate the string, join it all together. Name, which was our argument, and we're going to make it cheerful. So here's our function, and we're going to run the function. So we're going to say hello to Code First Girls. So because we're running this on REPL, we're going to hit this button here, and we're going to expect that hello Code First Girls appears. Ooh, nice. It's broken. What have I done wrong? Missed out a symbol. Here we go. If you are coding along in a code editor, then it's going to look like this. And you can't hit a run button. Instead, you're going to run the script. So do node to tell it that you want to run some node code, and do index.js to tell it which script to run. And the same thing's going to happen. So there we go. We have written our first Node.js function. But that wasn't going to send any information to our front end. What do we need to do to send information from our server to our front end? Well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do it using a package called Express. We're going to build an Express app that's running on the server. We're going to create a get root, which is going to display hello world. We're going to listen for it on the front end, and then we'll be able to visit our hello world website. Ooh. Okay, let's go back to REPL so that we can do it. So I'm just going to write over this instead. So first of all, we need this package called Express. And in REPL, we can do it via the Packages tab. And we're just going to search Express. We're going to add it. All kinds of things are going on in the console. Remember this npm, the package manager, is installing Express. That's all this command is doing. And we've acquired two things, a package lock, which we're not really going to worry ourselves about, and a package JSON. And the package JSON just gives us all the information about the packages that we're using in our code. It's called Code First Girls because that's what we called our project. It's version 1. The script that's going to kick everything off is index. We haven't written any test scripts, so nothing appears here. But the dependency is Express that we just installed. So if you're running it in your code editor, you just do npm install Express. Why is it sad? Type out the words in full. And here we go. It's installed Express. You have to type a few more commands to get a package JSON. So you can do npm start, npm build, I don't remember, npm something to get a package JSON, and then it will look like the REPL. So let's go back to our script. And we can't use Express yet because we haven't required it. So we're going to say, we're going to declare a variable Express, and we're going to require it. We're going to say require Express. Maybe you have to do this in index.js first before you run an npm install. So it's now we're telling this script, whenever I run this script, I would like Express to be used. And then we're going to set up an app. So we're using this package. It lets us create an app. So it's app like this equals Express. And this is Express, a function that comes from this Express package. It's just creating an app. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes, but Express is handling that for us. And then we're going to create a root. So we're going to do app.get slash. This is going to be the slash root. So if you look up here at our URL, we've got to here this slash. So imagine that this is the home page of our app. And then this takes as an argument, I think it looks like this, rec res, arrow, and then some curly braces. So remember from before, we had a function, and our function said, say hello. It took name, there was no arrow, but there was some curly braces. This is an anonymous function, so it hasn't got a name, but it takes these two arguments, rec and res, and it spits them into the curly braces. Rec and res are short for request and response, and we'll get into those a little bit later. But for now, we're only going to think about the response. We're going to do response.send hello world. Yep. Then, where are we sending this? Well, we're going to do app.listen 3000, and we're just going to stick in here a little function that tells us where we're listening. So we're going to do console.log listening on, okay, let's be a bit more precise. Let's say app server running on port 3000. The internet is all built through ports, and they're kind of like ports in real life. If you go to port 3000, then you expect to find the things that say they live at 3000. So this is what we've done. We've set up something to be served at slash, and it's running at 3000. If I hit run, I'm hoping we're going to get a browser. Why have we not got a browser? Connected. What did that mean? There we go. I just need to be patient. Maybe this is because everybody is using REPL to do this today. It's a little bit slow. So here we are at this web address. We've reached Hello World. And it really is going to this web address. So if I just pop this in to Chrome, we're going to see Hello World. And just to play around, if I change this to /home, and run it again, we're going to get an error. So we say it cannot get / because now we don't know where, it doesn't know where to go when we hit /. But if we go to, let's just refresh the page. It doesn't know where to go. We go to home and we get Hello World. If you were running this in your code editor, then you'll need to visit localhost 3000 / and that'll take you to the same place. This is where the 3000 is. Because we're not running locally, we don't see a 3000 here. REPL gives us our own special web address. But there we go, we have created a server. So what were we going on about requests and responses? Well, requests and responses are how the internet communicates. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol, and it uses this request response idea. The server listens on the port. We were using 3000. The browser sends a request to the server. The server processes the request and returns a response, and the browser displays the response. So quite often, a response might be a block of HTML that the browser knows how to display. We didn't see any styling because we didn't return any styling in our response. We just saw text because that's all we sent. And there are 4 types of request. There is a GET request. We used a GET request. It was implicit in what we did. We just asked for some information and the server sent it. If instead we'd used a POST request, we wouldn't have received any information. A POST request creates resources or sends information to the server. Then we have a PUT request, which allows us to put information somewhere. So posts are used, let's say you're submitting a form, that's probably going to be a POST request. But if you would like then later to change the information, so say you submitted a form that had your name and address, and then later you wanted to change your address, you might then use a PUT request to put the new address on top of the old address. And finally, delete deletes resources. Often websites will have information for all 4 of these cases, particularly if they're manipulating a database. And all responses return a message. So it's going to be a message with some additional data, including a status code. And there are 5 different types of status code. And they give you information about what happened. So you're possibly familiar with 404 page not found. But 100 status codes give us information They don't tell us about the success or failure. 200 status codes confirm that the request was successful. It might give us some other information. Often we're looking for 200 OK responses. 300s tell us that the request was redirected. It might still succeed. So you could get redirected if you're trying to sign in and you use the login via Facebook button. That might hit a redirect and you might see 300s. 400s are client-side failure. So for example, 404 page not found. That usually means you've typed something wrong in after the slash. There is nothing to get, and then the server returns a 404. 500s are errors at the server side. For example, 507 is insufficient storage. So if you're doing a post request, sending some data, and you get a 507 back, you sent too much data and the server didn't know what to do. And having a general understanding of status codes is very helpful when it comes to debugging. They're not fun to learn, but there is an excellent website called http://statusdogs.com, which gives you most of the common status codes with a picture of dog to help you remember what it looks like. It's my absolute go-to for when I get an unfamiliar status code, because it's just an improvement to looking it up in a dictionary. Yeah, right. So let's do something a bit more complicated with our server. We're going to use the server that we had before that was returning hello world, and we're going to create a new route, and our route is going to return a lucky animal. And we're going to see how Express handles routes. We're going to see what happens if we put some bad information in, but we're going to see how the request parameters work. So back to our REPL. So our app's already set up. We've got our, change that back to just slash, and I can just add in another route here. So my route is going to be animals, something to do with animals. So let's do app.get /animals/:id. This is going to be my route that I'd like to hit. So let's create a list of animals that we could retrieve. So let's say let animals equal lion, elephant, ant, and dog. So here's my list of animals. And I want to be able to get one of my animals when I hit this URL. And this :id is a variable. This can change. That's what the colon's telling us. And we're going to define what ID means. So remember this function that looks like this with our request and our response. It's going to go to something. We're going to say let ID equal request.params.id. What's going on? Well, the browser has sent this information request, and it's going to be a great big bit of JSON. So like a set of text, all inside curly braces. It's going to look something like name is request, then some more information. Params is going to be equal to some stuff that includes ID, which let's say in our example is 1, and it might also include a parameter called time, and the time is 1835, a whole load of information all stored as text that has been sent. And here we're just processing this information inside our request. There's a parameter called ID. This is what the Express app is doing in the background for us. So then let's consider what we're going to send back. So we're going to do res.send. This is Express doing the hard work. We're going to send back your lucky animal is space in, concatenate the string, and then we're going to say animals ID. So what's this doing? This is finding, so we're going to put a number in. It's going to find the animal that's indexed with ID. And in JavaScript, indexing starts at 0. So if I go to animals 0, I'm expecting to get your lucky animal is lion. Messed up here. Why is it sad? The little red squiggle is telling me something. There's a typo somewhere. But let's see what happens. So it was still running. I'm not seeing it. Anybody shout if they can see where the missing brackets or the missing colon might be. Ooh. Extra bracket on line 13. Extra bracket. I think it's still a bit sad. I don't think it is an extra bracket on line 13. This is the problem with REPL, bad debugging. Oh, maybe it's okay. Here we go. Hello world. So if we try here, animals 2, the lucky animal is ant. Oh, all right. Something's a bit wrong, but maybe it's just REPL being cross about something. Did we expect ant when we put 2 in? We had 0, 1, 2. Yes, we did. What will happen if we put something that doesn't exist? So what if I put animals / cat? Cat definitely isn't an index of this list. Well, let's try it and see. Let's go to animals / cat. So it gave us a page, but it didn't give us a 404. Why not? Well, Express knows how to handle up to animals, and then Node is saying there is no such thing as animals square braces cat, and it returns an undefined here. So we still get your lucky animal is, and then undefined. Similarly, if we put 5 in, we're going to get the same thing. Your lucky animal is undefined. If we put 3 in, we'll get dog. So there we have it, a set of requests and responses. You have written your very first HTTP request that actually does something. So to round off, we'll do a quick quiz just to cement some of these ideas. Fun, fun, fun. Which of the following forms a web app? A server, a keyboard, and a mouse. A browser, a server, and a database. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It is, of course, the browser, the server, and the database. Give yourself a round of applause if you nailed it. Which keyword would you use to import Express or any package into your file? Add, bring, or require? Was require. Don't know why. Sounds good, doesn't it? What type of HTTP request is normally used to remove data? Is it a get, a post, or delete? Happily, it's delete. I do like it when things have sensible names. When would we use a post request? To send user data from a form, to load a website, or never? It is to send user data in a form, posting the data to the server. What does the response status code 200 mean? Does it mean something's broken, everything's okay, or we're being redirected? 200, it's the happy code, it's okay. So, to summarize, we learn all these things. Web apps, 4 elements, client, internet, server, database. We learned that Node.js is an environment that we can use to run JavaScript on the server. We learned about how browsers communicate, with servers sending requests and receiving responses. And we learned that both requests and responses are meaningful and they can be manipulated using Node. I would love to hear about how you got on with Node. And yeah, please go out, learn, play.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for that. Honestly, we even got a little bit of live debugging, which is probably one of the most stressful thing anyone could ever subject themselves to. My reaction would have probably been to rage quit and close the browser page and happy days. It's gone out of my mind. But again, thank you so much for that. And we've had a few questions coming in, and we maybe now going to jump in a bit of Q&A, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. There's one very interesting question that I'm going to show on the screen now. This one came in when we were talking about ports, and you refer to the number 3000, which was in theory the port that we were using, I think, and people were wondering what's the significance of the number.
Good question. There is some significance to numbers. As far as I'm aware, if you go too low, you risk interfering with ports that your computer's already using. 3000 is used a lot. It's kind of like the go-to default. Other things that you might see quite a lot in tutorials, people like 8080. I don't know why. There's also an upper limit that I don't remember for the number. But yeah, 3000 is just quite common. Your computer probably isn't already using it. So it was just nice and safe.
Yeah, makes sense. And I think we just have maybe some more questions on how to get into the world of Node.js. After this great presentation, I am definitely very, very keen to try and learn some more. So can you actually personally recommend maybe any good source of information that maybe you yourself used or people may use to get more into it?
That is a great question. I learned on the job, and the way that I learned was I'm not sure how okay it is to recommend this. The UK government has a thing called the prototyping kit or something like that, which runs an Express app in Node.js, and you mock up a pretend government service for applying for a juggling license. And it's used to, I think, try and encourage people who work for government development teams into how the government like to build apps. It uses Node, it uses Express, it also uses a templating language called Nunjux. But their like guide is very, very clear.
Okay.
And yeah, it is freely available. So
that's great.
Google it.
No, I will definitely give it a look because it sounds very specific, very, very interesting. Another question that we did see, it's more to do, I guess, how you got into doing this, whether you started with JavaScript or other related programming language, or you had to transition later.
Yeah, so I come from a maths background. So I started using Matlab, which is quite common in universities, I think, and not very common anywhere else. And we use it in maths because it's built particularly for doing maths. The name Matlab comes from matrix laboratory, and we were using lots of matrices, very mathematical way of thinking. So that's where I started. I did a bit of Python because I think everybody should do a bit of Python. And I use JavaScript now because it's part of the work that I do.
That sounds great. Because I guess, is there any advice, actually the other question, there you go, that you would give to someone that maybe does know they want to get to be using Node like you do in your job, but perhaps doesn't have any prior programming experience?
I think don't be scared. Don't let that intimidate you. Because it's so popular, you can Google it and somebody has definitely already asked that question on Stack Exchange. There are loads of guides, there are online tutorials. I mean, put it into YouTube, pick the one that has the most hits, and it'll help get you started. I think my advice would be, for putting stuff into YouTube, choose things that are recent, not 10 years old, because the language has developed. Similarly, if people are talking about versions of Node, make sure they're talking about the same version that you're using, because sometimes the changes are quite different. Yeah, I think it's a great place to start. I would start doing projects that are web-based rather than trying to build some sort of, I don't know, statistic model program. It's not really what it's built for. It can do it, but it's not what it's built for.
That makes perfect sense. I think probably what would be cool to at least close on, maybe hearing a bit more what your role involves on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
I know it's probably like a lot into one-line question, but if you were to summarize this somewhat.
Yeah, I guess it varies depending on the day, but we usually start with a meeting where the whole team, which is not just developers, development team, testing team, designers, all get together and we say, what are you stuck on? How can we help each other? What are you going to do today? That's very, very common in tech, that kind of meeting, often called a stand-up. And then I'll be working on a specific piece of work. Someone will have provided some instructions for the kind of changes they'd like to see on a screen, or the kind of functionality that they might like this website to have. So recently my team have been working on changing the way that the form input looks. So instead of using yes, no buttons, it lets you select as many things as you want. So that involves changing some of the way that the server logic is handled, because we want the questions to appear differently. We want the server to think a little bit differently about how the question information is stored. It involves tweaking the way it's displayed on the page, because yes, no buttons look different to checkboxes. And we write some tests as developers. So we write some tests and then we pass it over to the test team, and we work closely with the test team, and they write some more involved and complicated tests. And then probably as part of that work, but not necessarily on the same day, we go through with someone, a stakeholder, to show them what we did, and they go, oh yeah, that's what we meant.
And that's the happy ending to it.
Yeah.
That's really great.
Everything worked fine day.
That is very good. A happy path throughout your day, which is what we like to hear. We actually had another question popping up for you, Sarah, on, I guess, how you did that transition from studying something that's not necessarily software related at university to the job you're doing now.
So we casually referred to it as a research project. I did a PhD where I spent a lot of time coding. So that was how I got into coding. But I think people in tech, more and more, I think, companies are interested in finding people who are good at solving problems, are interested in learning, and who, when they're presented with something unfamiliar, can answer questions about it or ask intelligent questions about it. I think that's the kind of experience you need to have. You need to be good at showing other people that you can work something out.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you gain that without just doing it.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. As I said earlier, I am starting to study software development, and most of it is trying to figure out what you don't know and where to get the answer to it, and asking for help, I guess, in my experience at least.
Yeah.
So, cool. That sounds great. I think we're going to have to move on now to our next speaker. But Sarah, thank you so much again. Absolutely in awe of the keeping your cool during the live debugging. So honestly, that was amazing. Feel free to stay on for the rest of the stream, of course. Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, I hope to speak soon again.
Cheers.
Okay, speak later. Right, so back to me just for a second, just to remind you, we have now Andrea coming on from our sponsor, NatWest, and she's going to talk to you about a bit more career-focused talk and what opportunities are available at NatWest. Going to hand it over to Sarah.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chiara. And wow, it was lovely to watch Sarah. I was doing it live with her. And indeed, some of the things that she explained to you and she's doing is very much what I'm doing in my day-to-day job. So hello, everyone. I'm Andrea, and I'm a software engineer at NatWest Group. And I was just reflecting on this. I've now been in the bank for 5 years. I started my career after finishing my degree in biochemistry at the University of Manchester. So not really the traditional, usual career into technology. And I started on the business technology graduate scheme, as was called in 2016. And I've been here for 5 years now, and I genuinely don't think that I can imagine myself in a different place because I've enjoyed it so much. I've done a lot of various placements in my career in NatWest, and I started learning more about like systems and how systems are connected. I was interested at one point in data and analytics, so I went more into like a data scientist sort of role to understand more around the data that we're using, how we're using the data around our customers. And right now I'm working in the engineering team in NatWest Group in the API world. So if any of you have heard about open banking, that was one of the really big things that happened 2 years ago. Yes, it was 2019, when the government had a regulation that all the banks must have open banking. And that means making it more accessible and easier for people to look into their online accounts without really caring which bank you're actually using. So you could be using Monzo, you could be using Starling, you could be using NatWest, and you can imagine that from a competitor point of view, it really, really helps encourage more startups to start their business, and also to kind of like encourage us to move more at pace. Because I know whenever we're thinking about banks, we think of, oh, this is so old and this is so slow. But actually the past 5 years, I would say, have really made us think of, okay, we really need to produce the best customer experience that we can, or not. We're not going to have the customers that we appreciate having so much. So currently, I'm actually a software engineer in the API team, and very similar to what Sarah just showed, I am actually very much creating the routes for the different APIs that we're working on. So very much using the different methods that she was talking about, like get, post. We don't use as much put or delete because we don't really want our customers to delete the data that we have, but very much around submitting forms and making sure that our systems in the backends are going to be operating the way that we expect them to. And I cannot recommend enough the HTTP response with dogs. I still use it, and I still very much enjoy whenever I'm having a bad day, or I get down to debugging and I see a response and I'm just like, oh, what was it? Instead of just looking the HTTP error, I will go on the dogs and have a funny dog face, and it just makes my day a lot better. So that is a bit around my role, how I kind of got into technology. NatWest is really, really great at actually helping people grow in their career. So throughout my 5 years, I've always had a mentor based on what were the areas that I really wanted to grow into. So I started by looking at how to encourage more girls to join technology. That has always been one of the things. So I was aligned to a leader in technology that has 2 daughters who are keen to grow into technology, and to kind of coach him and mentor him on what he could do more to encourage women to join technology. And that has helped him kind of open up to new opportunities and new ideas, as well as help me grow in my career, because we're talking about how I want to progress in the organization and where I want to grow next. It was really, really brilliant to just kind of like have that exchange and just know where I'm going next. So, and as far as my technical expertise, I've had loads of things being kind of offered and opportunities opened to me. So ever since I joined the group, I had a Udacity account, and I could do Udacity nano degrees on the side of my job. So while developing and while learning and while pair programming with people in my team, I could at the same time spend time on getting a nano degree and getting a qualification out of it, as well as using Udacity. Udacity has been absolutely brilliant to just, okay, I want to get more experience in this that I do not know about right now, but I know that there's an area and there is a place where I could actually learn about it. So I feel like genuinely the entire time I've been so supported to learn more and to bring the best that I can to my day-to-day job. So it's always been I've always had to put the time in to learn about it, to do my job and make sure that I'm delivering based on the requirements that I get, as well as develop both from like a personal point of view and just empowering more women to join technology. So it's kind of a diverse role. I've done quite a few things, and I've always been really good at managing my time to say, okay, as Sarah stated, start my day with a team, identify what are the blockers, what are the things that we're going to be working on together. Then I spend some time thinking of how do I plan my day so that I can both tackle the code that I need to do, as well as do some of my inclusion and other activities that I'm involved in. I think that I'll just go for whistle stop in here, and I would absolutely love to take some questions on either my career or anything that people are interested to find out more about.
Thank you, Andrea. That was very interesting, and it's really, really impressive, I think, to hear that you've been with NatWest for the past 5 years, you said, and like had experienced so much in there. So I think we had, I guess, a couple of questions on the pathways into NatWest. There was something to do with whether or not NatWest currently offer any graduate opportunities or internships. So you sort of touched on that because you went on into the bank through the graduate scheme, but do you know as to anything going on at the moment?
Yes, and I'm very, very happy to both say that yes, there is, and also to like endorse them. So I actually started on the internship and then was successful to go on the graduate scheme. So NatWest has always been keen on encouraging that for people who did indeed either study a STEM career or are very interested in technology and science to come and join. So both internships as well as graduate schemes are offered, and it is a really good mix because you can kind of specialize in what you're interested in. So I know we have a software engineering one, which is great to actually develop software engineers, which is is more technical compared to what I did 5 years ago, which was one of the pieces of feedback that I kind of gave the team, and it was lovely to see that they actually took it into consideration.
That sounds great. Actually, just a follow-up, I guess, if you don't mind, more generally, if you're aware of your out of your personal experience, like besides of internship or grad program, do you know of any other sort of pathways into the bank?
Yeah, so I do know that at the moment the bank is very keen on apprenticeships as well. So for younger people to just try to find their path and try to find their career. And I know that if you're looking for roles like a UX designer, which I know quite a few of my friends are looking, NatWest offers a really awesome internship for that. But as well as if people are professionals and they are looking to join the organization within a tech role, we are doing things like reskilling programs and trying to think of women who do, or actually anyone who comes from a diverse background and does have an experience, is there actually an opportunity for us to try to reskill them?
Mm-hmm. That is very good. I think very, very on topic, given recent developments and everything. And I guess just on that, a question that popped up just now. So are there opportunity for self-taught programmers? So I think I've asked this question myself sometimes, which is I'm assuming people are thinking if you don't have a formal qualification, how does that work to apply for stuff?
I actually think we're really lucky in the industry that we are in, and especially in software engineering, because there are so many different ways that when you don't need to have a university degree to show that you can actually do it. It's absolutely awesome just to have like your GitLab or any sort of like way to show some of the projects that you've worked on. So it's kind of like your mini portfolio as a developer, saying that you're really interested in this. So one example, very similar to what Sarah was showing, I was at one point playing around with creating like a shop with various things. And that was one of the things that I kind of just spoke to my, when I was applying for my current role, I spoke to my manager saying that, oh, so this is something that I built on the side of my job. And he was like, oh, I didn't know that you're interested in that. Let me see if you can actually join in the engineering team. So highly recommend self-taught people and people to apply for it and actually show. And it doesn't, I had the same question when I joined the bank, and I was so worried. Honestly, I remember myself in 2016 being like asking everyone, I was like, I do not have any Java experience. I do not know how to do that. So are you sure you still want me? And I had like that imposter syndrome kind of going on in my head, like, you're not ready for this. Why are you going for this? It's going to be so difficult. But actually, it wasn't around knowing how to do a specific language, but it was just more about the problem-solving mindset that you start having by actually doing some programming or doing something on your own. Because that, in my view, and I definitely think most people think of it as you're motivated to do it. You're actually more motivated because you're doing it yourself compared to being in a university course, sometimes just in the lecture having to do what your lecturer wants you to do.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think Sarah was saying earlier, like just that problem-solving passion and mindset and determination to find out how to do it. You don't have the answer spoon-fed to you, I'm assuming, in most situations. But yeah, that sounds great. A very, very good question. And actually something that came up and probably is quite interesting for quite a few people. And Sarah was saying earlier, like, make sure if you're looking something that is actually up to date and I'm assuming, please correct me if I'm wrong, that is a very fast changing industry. So do you have any ways that you stay informed, stay on top of stuff?
Yes, and I think it's always a challenging one. And it's interesting because I was talking to people today about innovation and how to have like an innovative mindset. And we're talking exactly about how you can kind of some innovation will not really become massive, but some of it you really need to stay on top of. So I would highly I'm a big podcast person. I enjoy going on walks and I enjoy going on runs. So for me, I will just put my earphones in and I will just go for a walk or for a run. And I listen to quite a few technical podcasts. So AZ16 is one of them that I really recommend. And they're following more on what the Silicon Valley team is doing and what is going on in like a really innovative industry, but as well as kind of like going on Stack Overflow, as everyone knows. And I also go on a lot of the Reddit industries just to see what is going on, what do my peers think that is relevant, and what is new in the world. Because in the world of coding, you can kind of say that, oh, I think it was kind of like 15 years ago, if you were to say that you're great at C++, that would have been absolutely amazing. Nowadays, it's not really that relevant. So you really need to stay informed on what is new and coming, and things like Node.js, like it was shown today, things like Swift and any kind of like new thing. The more you kind of like start understanding it from the start, the easier it will be as you go on in your career.
That sounds great. And I know there, I don't know if it may be involved, but there may be other stuff coming up with NatWest. So I was wondering if you know if NatWest are planning on doing any more with Code First Girls and courses, events, or other things like this.
So I know that they are at the moment in planning, and there are more coming, because honestly, we love doing this. And I'm speaking on behalf of Damien, who's been organizing most of these things. It's really, really inspiring to work with Code First Girls, and there are more coming. Keep an eye on the website is all that I can say, because I know the dates are not yet finalized and I can't promise and then say that, Andrea, you said a day and then it's not happening. But keep an eye on the website, because there will definitely be more coming.
Sounds good. Sounds very excited. As I said, I can't say it enough, probably a bit of a broken record. Do keep an eye on the website. There is really many different opportunities, and I personally have benefited so much from them, so I cannot recommend them enough. I guess it's a nice question that came up. This again, going back, I guess, to your personal experience in your career in tech. So what do you wish you knew or had known at the start of your career in tech?
Oh, wow. That is a very special question. And I think probably the thing that I wish myself like 5 years ago did a bit better is just have confidence in myself and in my skills. I feel like sometimes I just treated the years of experience that others had as being like, oh, they know so much better than me and I should just listen to them without really asking a lot more questions. And I felt like as I've kind of grown and as I've matured in my role, I just found out that everyone, even if someone knows more things, it could be that those things may not be relevant nowadays. So it's always good when you're working in a team to ask the questions and to be inquisitive. So even if someone is telling you, oh, this is the way that things are, there's nothing wrong with you asking questions. And I'm probably guilty of asking my team one too many questions sometimes when I'm just like, so why is that the case? And how do you do that? And can you explain to me how that is working? But I think that they also really appreciate it because we come up with like better ways to do things. And actually, it's just like, oh, actually, maybe we should change this. And this is actually not very efficient. So I really wish that at the start of my career, I asked more questions than I did nowadays, that I did at that point. But nowadays, I don't do it anymore. So,
yeah, and it's probably, as you said, it's starting to, with that confidence, it would be great. But obviously, you've come a long way, and you've probably, it sounds like you've really built on that. And I guess just to follow up on this is maybe my own personal curiosity, but do you use like agile techniques and something I think Sarah mentioned just earlier? Did that sound familiar for you as well?
Yes, so we use agile in everything that we are doing. So as Sarah already alluded to, we also start our day with the daily stand-up, which involves 15 minutes in the team, getting everyone together and discussing what did you do yesterday, what are you planning to do today, and what are some of the blockers, and then we kind of get together as a team. Then every 2 weeks we have a sprint review, so we kind of go through what were the stories and what were the features that we have achieved in the past 2 weeks, getting with a stakeholder. And in the best case scenario, as Sarah mentioned, I'm really sorry to disappoint. It doesn't happen as often for me. When it doesn't go like, oh, that was exactly what we're expecting. It's usually like, oh, that looks interesting, but I have a better idea and I want to change that, which is great, because it means that we're always like on our toes, and it keeps us very much like, okay, so now we understand better. And I love retrospectives and I love reviews from that point of view, because it actually makes you think of, oh, actually, this is the thing that our product owner and our users are looking for. So it's always great to have the review. Then we go into retrospective, and I cannot say how much I love retrospectives, because the team kind of gets together and they talk about how they feel. And especially in engineering and software engineering, when you don't think it's very touchy-feely, you really get people properly saying that, okay, so I really had a really bad sprint because of this happening, or I had a great sprint, and we kind of like thank each other, and it's really, really lovely. It builds us as a team and the communication that we have together. And then we have the planning, where we go again and say, what is the goal for the next 2 weeks? What do we want to achieve as a team, and how can we ensure that we work together the best that we can?
That sounds great. I think, yeah, team working is something personally I really need to work on. So that is actually a very good overview and advice. We have had a couple of questions just pop in, and this again is more about working with NatWest, and I find this actually quite interesting. So one of our viewers is asking whether a big bank like NatWest is open to remote working after the pandemic, and maybe how does it work for you just now?
Yes, and I'm more than happy to answer that. Thank you, Tina, for the question. So NatWest, from the very, very start of pandemic, and I think that was in April last year, said everyone will be working from home. And even right now, post-pandemic, and as we're kind of going back to normal work life, it still recommends to work from home, and they will never say it's compulsory to go into the office. So it depends very, very much on the situation that you are in. So we have the technical team in particular, and people in technology, they said that you don't need to be in the office. So they would recommend going 2 days a month in the office whenever you have like collaborative sessions or like planning sessions where you need to like draw on whiteboards, put sticky notes and ask the questions. And then the rest of the time just work from home and build it at your own pace. It's also a very good bank when it comes to like your thinking about your lifestyle and how you want to work. It's never been, oh, you have to be here from 8 till 6. It's always been like, if you prefer to work 10 to 6, or if you prefer to work 9 to 5, that is your choice. Just work whatever hours make you feel best. If you want to take 2 hours for lunch at the same time, it's always been just go for it, whatever helps you in your mental health. And then you come back, and as long as you achieve what you promised to do, is genuinely, I felt very lucky in the pandemic, and even post-pandemic. Personally, I enjoy being in the office, and I miss my interaction with my teammates. And I asked my manager if there's any chance for me to come more than 2 days a month, and he said definitely, because you asked for it. Not many people are going to be in, so it's lovely to see that they're kind of taking it on individual by individual preference.
Yeah, that sounds great, and also that is the thing. That is the way most organization will be going. Another question that popped up, I guess we can, if you do have somewhere, we can share the link. I can share the link for you in the comments, but people are wondering how they can apply for the opportunities that NatWest may have on offer.
Great question from Elizabeth, and I do promise to share a link after this with our careers website. And I am pretty sure that we do have some career switches and scholarships that we offer that will be advertised on the Code First Girls website. So it's going to be a mix of what is on the Code First Girls as well as the NatWest Careers website.
Sounds great. I will make sure just when we wrap up to reshare again the Code First Girl website and the career session. So have a good look around there as well. And I'll make sure to get Andrea to share the NatWest one as well. Cool. There was another question. Let me fetch it. Oh, this one, again, we're going a bit more big picture, I think. I think you did allude to this or touch upon it, but just to hear your own personal thoughts, what role, if any, do you think that technology will play in the future of the financial industry as a whole?
It's massive. That is all that I can say. So even in the vision that we have for NatWest Group is very much around being a digital bank. So I think the past few years, and especially with the pandemic kind of hitting us, we've noticed that not many people are using cash anymore. Not many people are going to branches anymore, and everything is kind of going online and everything is going virtual. So I think as we're kind of going through the years as they're going to come, I think that technology will be the backbone of everything that is being done in financial industry. One quick example of my work experience and an interesting project that I worked on in the past few months, we're looking at the way people change their addresses. And I think that Sarah alluded that quickly in the example that she gave. And up until last year, and I think it's still actually the case, if you want to change your address at NatWest, a group, you would have to go into the branch to request to change your address. And you can imagine in a time like a pandemic, when not many people could go to their branches, that would make it very difficult. In my personal situation, I rent, so I do not own a place. So I move every year. So that makes it a very big inconvenience for me to have to go to the branch to say, oh, so I've moved here. Oh, so I've moved there. Oh, so I've moved to the other place. So my team and I, we got this problem, and it's like, oh, wow, we can't believe this is still the case. So we started like thinking of how we're planning to solve this problem. And right now we're very, very close to releasing the update that actually says you can change your address on your mobile app. And then we will know that it was you who actually changed the address. So this is one of the examples where we're taking the process away from the branch, and we're enabling people who are working in a branch to solve the real customer problems. When you see people that are in distress and they are really struggling to know how to solve a very complex problem, and the things that could be simplified and that we could reduce, they're being done by technology.
That sounds great. And I think it's very cool to give like such a good specific example, so that for people it becomes a little less abstract. And that sounds something that you could think is quite straightforward, very clear customer problem, but I cannot even begin to imagine how much work went into it from legal side, compliance side, technology side, most of all, we're very involved in.
And you are exactly right, because it's exactly as Sarah showed in her diagram. It's around the server thing that you have to think about. And then indeed, as you know, Chiara, there are all the different strands of the governance that we always need to provide.
I used to work in compliance in a big bank, so
okay.
Side of the table, so absolutely that must have been a mammoth project. I think so. We are down to our last few questions. This one I think would be quite useful for people to hear. So obviously you've touched upon asking questions, so being inquisitive, something I hear very often, but any other skills that come to mind that are useful in your role?
So I think, yes, the idea of asking questions and being inquisitive I would definitely classify as one of the top one. I think using data and knowing how to use data is very important in the role that we are doing. Is mostly just like when you're thinking about a problem or when you're thinking about a particular solution, just know why you think it is a problem and why I think that is the correct solution. So if I'm thinking that the pandemic was such a big hit because this is 80% of the population was affected by it, that resonates a lot more than saying that the pandemic was big because a lot of people were affected. So trying to use data in the arguments that people have. And in my role, it really helps a lot, because when we're talking about tests and we're saying that, 20% of our tests were successful, then that will definitely put a big red mark saying that, okay, what about the 80% that didn't make it? So we need to go and make sure that we fix our code to make sure that it runs smoothly. Then other things is probably around collaboration, and I probably cannot highlight enough around being open, and when things are going wrong, just knowing that you have your team behind you to say, okay, this is not going as I expected it to go. I don't actually know how to do it. It really makes a big difference, because then someone can say, okay, I'll come and help you. And then we can work through problems together. I absolutely love pair programming, and I'm a big fan, both to do it with others who are more senior than me and also to do it with people who are more junior. And it's just a nice way to kind of just collaborate and work together and have a different conversation when you're taking a break or just waiting for your code to run. So definitely around collaboration. And probably the last one that I would say is around being innovative and being a bit disruptive. It's always great to see someone who is just like, okay, so how about we try things in a different way? it's very refreshing and can make a day a lot more interesting when someone is coming up with a really interesting idea.
That sounds very, very cool. Like a very exciting place to work, and we're receiving some lovely feedback in the chat as well, that's saying that NatWest sounds like a great place to work, and it's very good to show this side of, you know, a long-standing, quite very large bank where you can still be disruptive, you can still suggest new idea, and yeah, have that be part of your day-to-day job, which sounds like a dream. Cool. I think that was it for the questions. So Andrea, we really cannot thank you enough for coming. It's very, very exciting to hear there is more coming up with the partnership between Code First Girl and NatWest. So if you can, send me the link. I'll share it to the NatWest career page. I will share it on the stream as soon as we can. But apart from that, if there are any other questions, I know, for example, for Sarah, she was kind enough to share her LinkedIn detail with us. So scroll up in the comments. We may also share it again, and you can find it there. Andrea, in case you want to share anything else in the chat, send it to me on StreamYard, and I'll be sure to share it. Cool.
More than happy to take any questions on LinkedIn as well. And if you have anything else, please do feel free. Even if you have a question around what it is like, feel free to message me. Happy to help.
That sounds good. It's always so much better to hear it from someone that actually is doing the job, but is actually within the organization. Honestly, if any of you guys are thinking of reaching out, I would absolutely recommend it, also from personal experience. So yeah, that sounds great. I am, again, going to thank you, Andrea and Sarah, again, both so much. Hope to maybe speak to you again in the future. I'm going to go back to the screen that we had in the beginning and post the last information in the comments for everybody to get to. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining. To everybody that was watching, thank you again, Sarah, for the great Node demonstration. And thank you so much, Andrea, for talking through what your life at NatWest is like. And yeah, everybody have a good evening. Remember, there are more MOOCs, so I'll repost the link to that to have a look. There's some great topics coming up. And yeah, thank you for joining us this evening. Bye to everybody. Bye.